Hello friends and welcome to a new episode of Skills for Mars. Did you know that half of the world today still doesn't have access to the internet? Can we create inclusive, transparent and just technologies without their contribution? We shouldn't. My guest today is Elena Ardelean, a social change maker, the founder of AI4DA, a global NGO whose mission is to advance AI literacy to the unconnected and most vulnerable communities globally. We will dive deep into AI education, what AIDA does to support, the role NGOs, businesses and governments play into enabling tech awareness for everyone. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share your thoughts in the comment section below. Hello Elena and welcome to Skills for Mars Future of Work. I'm very thrilled to be hosting you.
Hi Julia, it's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
Elena, for everyone to get to know you a bit better, can you tell us a bit about yourself, who you are, and maybe what have been the major influences in your life and career?
Yes, of course. Thanks for the question. So my name is Elena Ardelean. I am originally from Romania, but I have spent most of my lifetime abroad, traveling and working and also studying in different countries. You know, if I had to describe myself with a few words, I would say I'm a social change maker. I am a role changer. I'm also a female entrepreneur who believes in humanity and is determined to empower others reach their full potential. I'm also someone who loves traveling and loves good food and good wine. I suppose that comes from my experience and from my time in France. Julia, I come from a modest background in Romania, and a major influence played in my life, my family, in particular my grandparents, and also my grandmother, of course. She was a formidable force and a very, very wise person. She taught me by practice ambition, courage, and humility. And from my grandfather, I have learned what hard work means and how to treat others with dignity and respect. And then later, going to your point related to career, later down the road in my career, I was lucky to meet people who love teaching and mentoring. And me on the other side, I was curious and eager to learn. So, that was a match.
Do you have any role model in career-wise?
One woman I have worked with, I had the pleasure to work with, was my former manager in the International Chamber of Commerce in Paris. She was a force for leadership and a force for inspiring others around her to really get the best out of them and deliver at work. So many of my inspiration, I would say, and many of my tools that I use as a leader are inspired from her.
Elena, before we spoke last time, and definitely in preparation for this discussion, I had a look at what you have done, and it has impressed me a lot. Because I think you have chosen the hard path, definitely not the beaten path. You have worked in NGOs, you have worked for government institutions, you have worked for the private sector. You have this tri-sector experience for sure, but even if I look at what you have done with NGOs and governments, it is a very interesting mix. So from ecological type of activities and endeavors to advisory for town halls, to legal frameworks for transport and social infrastructure, e-government, public sectors, modernization, anti-corruption. I think there's something about conflict and post-conflict zones and training leaders coming from these areas. What drove you to choose all of this, and what drove the changes as well? They're, again, not really on the beaten path.
Yeah, craziness. You're right. It is atypical, my background and the choices I made. But you'll see that there is a common denominator in all of them. And basically, this part of my life, I call it from the east to the west. So from Romania to Austria, to France, and maybe even farther to the west. So, I believe life is partly what you make and partly made by others whom we choose to follow. And as for the part I played in my journey, I would say that curiosity, courage, and the desire to make a difference drove the force behind my decisions, all my life decisions. And also very early in my life, I had to become independent and work to sustain myself. So I had my first paid job with 16, and during my studies, I even held 2 jobs at some point. So I worked hard to secure a good education for myself, and never hesitated to take the opportunity to be exposed professionally and also personally to different contexts and cultures. So I have started my career as a young professional in Paris, working as an ICT and change management consultant, helping employees successfully manage any transition in the organization, but also for themselves individually. After that, as you were saying, I was hunted by the World Bank, with whom I worked in Europe and the Middle East, supporting governments in strengthening their economies and designing strategies and policies to provide their citizens better lives. And yes, currently I run a tech non-profit organization which educates people on AI risks and challenges.
Tell me a bit.
It is an atypical, yeah.
It is very atypical. And so first of all, you just said you started at 16 years old. How did that influence you? That's very early for someone that comes from our country. It doesn't usually happen. Or at least we are kind of there as age. There weren't opportunities for people who are that old. I know I wanted to work when I was 16, 17. And there was nothing, right? Everyone in Romania is asking for experience or a certain age, usually over 18. So it is not that easy to do it. And besides finding work and how hard it was, how did that help you build character later on?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I was in Austria back then, in Vienna, and I think the culture here really promotes or encourages students to explore and work during their study time. Also, the life quality here, it's much better than in other places of the world. So you can have a job on the side and kind of finance yourself. So the economic environment and the societal environment made that possible. Now it framed me in many, many different ways, and I think for a lot of my work ethics, I have to. I have gained during this time, basically, apart from exposing me to different people, different ways of working, different contexts, learning how to deal with difficulties, how to deal with different characters at work, how to be, client oriented, how to build resilience as well, and humility. I think, I would say these were the main aspects that form my character, or kind of experiences I gained from starting very young as a student.
I'm also curious. You worked for institutions that I dream of understanding how they work, right? Because they seem like they're very close, because they influence our decisions and they influence our lives. But it's very rare that you can see them working from the inside. Like the World Bank, the 100 mentors, and everything that you did for peace building and so on. Did these experiences change the way you view life? And if yes, how and why?
Yes, I think every experience we experience in our life changes us and changes the way we perceive life and we perceive ourselves as well. It was my experience with the World Bank and also the other institutions we mentioned were a tremendous opportunity for me to grow and to learn. So I gain a unique experience and insights into how strategic decisions are made, how governments function, what economic tools they use to improve their societies. It has definitely been a very, very unique experience for myself, and very enriching one as well. And this gives me more strength, I would say, and also more knowledge when interacting with these actors in my daily job now for AIDA. So I definitely understand how that macroeconomic environment functions, and what are the main stakeholders, and what are their expectations, and what would be the win-win situation when it comes to implementing or developing projects.
Is this why you chose to build an NGO?
Yes. Yes. Well, the downsides of these organizations is that, of course, these are complex administrations, complex systems that they have so many stakeholders and so many aspects to take into account that it is really, really difficult for them to have a light version of administration. So it is working with these organizations is very bureaucratic and can be, frustrating sometimes for someone who has a lot of aspiration, has a lot to give to the world, and is dynamic and has maybe a creative mind and thinks that there is another way in which we can do things. And I wanted to have a grassroots impact. So I wanted to, be closer to the society, closest to the citizens, understand even better what their needs are, what their expectations and aspirations are, and support them in basically achieving these aspirations and ultimately achieving their full potential, which is quite difficult to do from point of view of an organization such as the World Bank or the European Investment Bank, etc. It is a unique character to the civil society and to NGO world.
But now you made me curious, because definitely by design, this kind of institutions, they are kind of heavy and they move as such, right? Do these satellite NGOs and these satellite activities and offices, do they help them be a bit more agile and act like a sort of action branches and action arms for them?
Somehow, to a certain extent, they do. In many aspects, all these institutions have a close collaboration with the NGOs, and they rely on the NGOs to understand better the image on the ground, the reality on the ground. So there definitely is a lot of interaction, a lot of learning experience and sharing knowledge and exchange among these two major sectors. In the world or in our countries, and also very often these international organizations play a mediator role in a country in which, let's say, the government apparatus and the civil society a part or a sector do not talk to each other. That, let's say, the dialogue and communication is not flowing. So very often they come in and they help to start that dialogue and find a common solution that would fit with everybody and make all parts of the game satisfying. So it is a close collaboration for sure.
I'm also curious and very intrigued of how and why you chose AI as your current pit stop, because you've been through so many fields and worked in so many fields, but still AI was the pit stop.
Yes. Well, AI is the present and the future. And I believe that we shouldn't ask ourselves anymore, do we want AI, but how do we want our AI to be? And how do I want, as a company, as a government, as an individual, to interact with this technology? So it is a technology that is not that recent, is not that new, has been with us for at least 40 years. What makes it so exciting today is the amount of data to which we have and the quality of data we have access to today, and that enables us basically to develop better AI models, better AI systems. And having this better and quicker and faster AI systems, it also means for us, for our society, that the technology, or AI in particular, is shaping our lives economically, socially, and politically, like no other technology has really done that before. It taps into our cognitive abilities. So it moves away from automation, and it's shaping. It's a cognitive revolution. This is kind of, I like to, or evolution, depends on who you talk to. And it is such an important and strategic, factor in our society that for me, it just was impossible to stay, be silent about it and not do anything around AI, and in particular to help communities and society understand better what AI is and how they can basically lead in the era of AI.
I'm curious, you are very much right now promoting the understanding and use of AI really for everyone, right? This doesn't really just talk to companies or to people who are highly educated or to the young generation or to the old generation, but to everyone. Did you start AI for development with other purposes in mind as well? And this is just the beginning, or how did you think about it?
So the first contact I had with AI was a more serious contact a few years ago, and I created AIDA, the Artificial Intelligence for Development, at the beginning of last year, and our main goal was to provide most vulnerable groups, in particular youth and women, with the right tools to lead in the era of AI. So we envision an inclusive society in which no one is left behind, while AI also, became a key driver of economic development. As I said, there is no doubt about it. We believe that AI also represents a global challenge, and more action is needed to secure that our communities are informed actors and involved in a decision-making progress. So this was our main idea and initial seed, I would say, for the organization. No one should be left behind, and in particular, vulnerable groups that are already struggling in many aspects would be even more affected by AI and are more affected by AI in general. It could go, the AIDA could go in different ways and could take different directions. I think this is a mission, as a vision, will always stay with the organization. We are a volunteer-based organization for now, and most of the actions and the projects we are running are voluntary driven. So they are community driven, and the direction which we'll go will definitely also depend on the people joining us, on their ideas, aspirations, and also on the other side, the needs and the needs that we will see on the ground and the reality that we will see on the ground.
So what kind of actions are you taking?
Yes, we have three main pillars in the organization. So we do AI awareness and AI literacy programs, and we are also involved in research. We are working on a fourth pillar that would be related to AI solutions, the development part, technical development part of AI. And we hope that giving this, three main pillars, we'll be able to build a system similar to an assessment, if you want, of AI in a different society, community, in terms of how transparent is the AI used in your community, society, how well established are the policies and regulations, how involved are the citizens in the development of your solutions, and how is the community, the government, the private sector responding to the needs of citizens. So, going back to AI literacy and AI awareness is a lot around training programs, developing challenges or festivals for children to learn more about AI, play with it. Is a lot of conferences, a lot of talks, webinars that we organize. Of course, with an holistic approach, as we believe that all stakeholders should be involved, including the private sector, the public sector.
I wanted to ask you about this. Are they involved, and how?
Definitely. It always depends on the country, and the context. But so far, we have been lucky to manage to, infuse that interest in them to take part in our organizations at different levels. Some with funding, other with providing, potential partnership for us, or promotion, or helping us to reach a target group we want to reach. It's one of the way, for instance, we collaborated in Kuwait with the society there. We partnered with local NGOs to help us, of course, promote and reach as many people as possible. The government helped with some research and also providing, facilities that we needed. And then the schools and academia helped with definitely bringing AI and our ideas to the schools and to the children that we wanted to reach.
I know you're very young. Are you tracking in any way, and I imagine you'll only see results later, are you tracking in any way if people that you have touched and you have been and you have educated on AI, if the increase in for them in going to STEM kind of activities or education, are you tracking in any way if that shift is happening?
It is very difficult to track, right? When to monitor something like this, and we are still a young organization to really look at that impact yet. But we definitely, whatever we develop and whatever project or activity we form, we definitely form with that in mind and with that objective to be able to measure the impact we have. Now, one success story that I could share with you is it happened in Kuwait, where we run a training program for the Kuwaiti community there. We brought parents and children together to learn about artificial intelligence, identify an issue in their community, such as being bullied at school or waste management, and then see how AI could support the community to tackle that issue. Now, this was a 6-month training program. So twice a month, we meet with everybody and deliver the training, and they will learn and play with it. And at the end of the training, the participants had the chance and the opportunity to be part of a worldwide competition, a global competition. And one of the families in Kuwait won the junior category. So won the grand prize for the junior category, which, put Kuwait on the global AI map in general, and B, definitely inspired also other families and other children in their community to at least to want to understand what AI is and how is AI impacting their lives. And one of the children, so the family had 3 children, one of the children said that he definitely wants to become an AI expert when he grows, and wants to do all the trainings is needed, and was very sad that the training was over. So I hope that this is a little bit of impact in the big picture.
Definitely one person at a time. I mean that's for sure a win. What was their solution? What did they want to use algorithms for?
Yes, so you have to know that in the Middle East, birds are loved species. So people in the Middle East love birds, and they have a lot of bird species that are protected, including in Kuwait. And because they have such a big, love for birds and passion for them, this family thought that it was very useful to develop an app that would recognize protected species, bird species, from not protected one. So they have developed an app where the machine will recognize what is protected and what is not protected. And the app will even go farther to explain the user what is the ecological environment for this bird and how can you protect not only the bird, not harm the bird, but also the environment itself, and why is it meaningful to not throw your plastic bags everywhere, this kind of ecological basically ideas and concepts that may be very familiar to us in Europe, but maybe not that much in other places, in other parts of the world. So it had also pedagogical dimension to it.
But this is very powerful. First, it can be used anywhere in any kind of ecological situation with any kind of species. And second, it proves that whoever gets to learn, even after 6 months, they can come up with solutions that can help entire ecosystems.
Yes, exactly. So one of the main, the key elements of the training program was not so much related to the technology itself, as it was related to helping the participants develop or strengthen their critical thinking skills, their creativity, their decision-making skills. These are skills for the future, for the future of work as well, and are skills that are definitely needed to identify, to come up with solutions in your own community. As AI technology is only a tool, it still requires, of course, the human being and the human thinking around it to really be useful and be used for a meaningful way.
I'm curious, were they fearful when they first started to learn about AI and when they first started in the program? Because AI is such an abstract thing and everyone is shouting AI here and there. You have utopias, you have dystopias of using AI. At some point, and this is why I started Skills for Mars as well, you don't know how it will affect your life. And most people are fearful. Oh, this is AI driven. I don't really understand what's happening there, so I don't even want to get into it. How did they start? Were they fearful? Were they indifferent? And where did they get at the end of the learning?
Very good question. I think it was mixed. In the group, we had people who were even not that much interested, were there just because, children, for instance, who parents thought this would be something you should be exposed to. Others who had a little bit more insights, etc. So we had a very mixed group in terms of expectations or emotions, feelings that were coming to the table. The first step we took was to really gain their trust in engaging with us as an organization, and then building on that trust slowly, explaining, in very broad terms, the potential of AI and also the downside of AI, of course. So we have a balanced message, I would say, when it comes to the way we perceive artificial intelligence. We believe that it can be very beneficial, but it can also be very harmful if it's misused. And we have a lot of examples around us in doing so. They ended up enthusiastic. They ended up really super also positive towards AI because they have seen the benefits of the technology, and also I think they definitely left the room with a critical thinking, and if we develop some skills to question things and say, okay, but what does it mean for me, and what does it do to my data, for instance? What does it do to us as a community? Do I really want to have cameras everywhere? That would be amazing for predicting certain things, but maybe it's kind of affecting
Until
my
it's
freedom.
regulated and transparent. Yeah.
Exactly. So it was a wonderful journey, and it always is, no matter where we go and community we are engaging with.
But it's very good that this starts raising questions as well about the current AI on the market. And there are definitely applications that we are not even aware of that governments use. And they definitely use our data to really understand what's happening, which is in itself not bad at all. Actually, this is something we should be supporting, because the more they understand how we behave and what would help us, the more they can actually support. But transparency is needed. Are there any? Is ethics in AI moving forward in any way?
This is a tough question. I think many governments, many researchers, and also the private sector, and the civil society, including ourselves, are working towards finding a framework for ethics in AI and defining that framework. It's still work in progress, but progress is done in that sense. So you see the European Commission launching many papers on this topic, research being advanced in that direction as well. And I think also in particular now during the Corona crisis, where we saw more and more AI applications being implemented to either help us with fighting Corona, or just delivering a better drug, a better vaccine, etc. So we saw a boom basically of development in AI that for which we did not really have the time to regulate. We did not really have the time to make sure our data sets are clean and are the right ones. And now we are kind of working, towards making sure that whatever was developed is still, it's really complying with the ethics we have as a society, and respecting our freedom, and is transparent. So there are different initiatives in this direction, and I'm optimistic that we will. We will move together as a society in a good direction. Definitely, when it comes in terms of AI development.
You mentioned 2020, and at least from my point of view, I think this was the year when AI could show its power or its progress until now and its evolution. Did you see any initiative this year that is really worth mentioning? Something that you said, good use of AI, powerful, definitely should do it again, continue on this path?
There are a few initiatives coming from the Nordic countries, for instance, in making AI more transparent and more accessible to users. So I know of an example in Helsinki and also in Amsterdam where they have developed the AI register. So this is basically a AI platform that gives teams being mainly from the public sector, so institutions, administration, gives them the opportunity to explain what kind of AI technologies they are using in their city, being it from, in terms of transportation or whatever use may be, and explain how they process the data, how they store the data, and why is it useful for me as an individual and also for us as a community. And I think this is the first really definitely right step in making AI more transparent, more palpable, and accessible to the citizens, as I believe that it's not so much about one data point, myself, individual, but what does it do to us as a community? And we are moving away from I'm sharing my data to definitely understanding better how the community and society operates and what is the impact of this development on the community. And is a way of is an impact, but it's not a static one. Is a movement. It comes from the society to the technology, and from the technology to the society. So, and I think these platforms really kind of highlight that dimension, that collective dimension, and strengthen the transparency and also to a certain extent the ethics dimension around AI.
I know you're all for inclusivity, as is pretty much everyone on this planet, I imagine. Everyone with common sense would like an inclusive or a more inclusive word. But AI is still biased because the data that we feed the machine is still biased. The way we build the algorithms, even though we believe they're not biased, I understand that with all the efforts, they still remain biased. Anything that you've seen, any kind of initiatives, any kind of progress in this area, so at least the biggest biases are reduced, like gender bias, age bias?
Yes, I think there are many initiatives, but as you say, so in general, AI definitely has the potential to help humans make fairer decisions, but really only if we carefully work towards fairness in AI systems as well. And that basically means having a good data set, as you say, a balanced, nuanced, colored data set, and also people on the other side that are developing the technology and use the technology most. So basically having the user and also the developer part of that target group or part of that diversity in there. And I think companies are more and more aware of this, in particular those that develop AI, such as Microsoft, for instance. I'm not making any publicity. I have no ties with Microsoft at all, but I admire their approach to a certain extent. And in particular, they have basically named a chief accessibility officer She is, for instance, deaf herself, so she's best positioned to, understand how people with disabilities, for instance, perceive and what their needs are, etc., and then make sure that they are part of the design, but also part of the developers and the users at the end of the day. So, but you are completely right. We still have a lot of work to do in terms of tackling the gender bias that we have in our technologies and also in our societies. There's a question of mindset as well and perception, and that may take time. Would not be that easy.
At least progress is happening.
It is.
Elena, are you alone in fighting this battle and in really bringing education and awareness into the general population? Are there any other NGOs, any other companies who are there as support, or who maybe have been doing this for a longer time than you?
I don't think I'm alone, and that gives me hope. and makes me feel more optimistic about the situation. There are other initiatives, though I believe we are unique in what we do and the services we provide, as we really come from a grassroots perspective, community perspective, and in which we go beyond informing what AI is, but we really try to educate people on AI and try to help them develop other skills than just programming, for instance, or just coding. So we are definitely unique in that sense. And what makes us also unique is our global dimension. So we have people in the organization from Ethiopia, from Tanzania, from Cameroon, from Uganda, from Portugal, Romania, Spain, so from different parts of the world that help us understand better the reality on the ground, and then develop or target actions in tackling these challenges. But what I believe is still lacking is the collaboration among the main stakeholders, the private, the public, and the civil society. I think the work and activities and initiatives are still very fragmented around the world and within a country. And your question is very good. Every day I learn about another organization doing maybe something similar that could be interesting, for us to reach out to partner with. And I just realized just once more how fragmented the whole system is. And I think one of the causes for this lack of collaboration and huge fragmentation is that basically main stakeholders, public and private, do not see AI yet as a social challenge, as a global challenge that has to be tackled as such. So they are still kind of denying basically this global dimension and the power of the technology on us individually and on us as citizens. So as I wish if I had a wish for 2021 was that major stakeholders declare AI as a global challenge, and then finally we'd have an agenda that will work around that, and everybody around the table will be included.
Do you have an ideal future in mind on this? Something that you think this is what we should aim for in terms of AI knowledge, AI understanding, AI pervasiveness in the population and the way we use it in communities?
I think there are different dimensions that can be tackled here. And the key element within this dimensions would be a community-driven AI. And I will explain why. So I think one of the pillars that would ideally would happen or will have in the future is a systematic pillar, is a pillar in which governments will feel strong enough and have the knowledge and the tools enough to understand the technology, understand how it shapes the policy and their society, and be a responsive, reactive, and not a proactive actor in the process. Then the second pillar would be the corporates. They have a huge, in particular, the tech giants have a huge responsibility in the development of the technology, and they should be, the first one to basically step up and initiate awareness campaigns, educational campaigns, etc. They definitely have an interest in having an educated user at the end of the day, and a healthy user as well. From all aspects. Then there is another pillar related to the individual itself. So what can I do for myself and maybe for my community? And here I think it's very important to place the individual at the center of any development that technology is going to shape, and also society or governments are going to embrace. Citizens need to be challenged sometimes with information, with participation in different events and debates, and it is basically at the end of the day in interest of everyone to have an informed and educated citizen in the process. And I hope that will happen soon.
Very AI soon. Is already here, it's not going away, so we'd better learn how to deal with it and work with it and use it to our benefit, for sure. How can people, those who want to maybe learn more about AI, get a bit of training, can they reach out to you? Is this available for individuals, or do you work through other NGOs? How does it work for those who really want to get better and understand AI?
We have experienced both. So we have experienced individuals that were reaching out to us directly with the desire to understand how they can use AI, for instance, in their daily work, and also societies, communities, or university schools that wanted us to help them understand and use AI. So we are quite flexible when it comes to that. And there are definitely, ways for us to tailor any program if is needed to, so basically to help them gain the experience and the knowledge they need. But we realize that most of those that reach out to us directly are people who already have a little bit of knowledge around AI, who are, well educated and have access to resources that will inform and educate them. Our main target group are people who do not have that access to that knowledge and to these resources, are people who have no idea about AI and neither have the means maybe sometimes to inform themselves and educate themselves. And for that to tackle, that is still a challenge for us. To really reach this group of people remains a challenge. So we definitely rely on our partners, on collaborations, and also on public sector initiatives that would basically enable us to come in and open the door and then start a dialogue around those topics.
Yeah, I hope this discussion will start some dialogue as well. We will definitely make it public and advertise it as much as possible, so you can get more support and more people interested in this.
Thank you.
One last question, Elena. How do you see the future of work through the lenses of AI?
Balanced. Balanced.
You're the first one that says that, so I'm very curious.
Yes, you're right. So many people tend to be either positive or negative, or optimistic or pessimistic about it. I think after having experienced AI as a user, but also as a trainer and researcher, I believe in its potential to help people get better the work they are doing, basically be an enhancing tool in their professional work. Jobs will be created, others will be modified or replaced. That is a reality. It's nothing that we can deny. I think we will have to face that. And there, the government and the private sector, again, I'm going back to my point before, will play a key role in making that transition smoothly for their societies, for their people, and making sure that no one is left behind. So I am optimistic to the extent in which every stakeholder is doing their job correctly, properly, is taking care of what they need to take care, including ourselves, trying to help citizens understanding and inform themselves. Without that happening, we may definitely see more divides, more gaps in terms of geographies and also in terms of economies and lack of access to information and education. We should not forget that 50% of the world's population is still not connected to the internet. And we definitely have to work on both ends. I would say on providing AI and helping them understand what AI is, but definitely making sure that the basic needs are also taken care of.
Elena, thank you very much. Is there something that maybe I didn't ask you and you wanted to mention?
Oh, thank you. I think we covered everything that we could have covered in this podcast. And it was really, really a pleasure to talk to you about myself and about AI.
Same here, Elena. For those who want to reach out to you, will it be okay if I share your LinkedIn profile, or how do you want to be able to reach out?
Definitely. Perfect. I think the LinkedIn profile, there is also a website. So we use all these channels. We are on Facebook, we are on Instagram, Twitter. So whatever channel would work best for them.
Perfect. If you share all the channels with me, then I can definitely make sure that they appear both on the audio podcast and on the video one.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you very much for your support.
Thank you so much as well.